Hi, welcome to my May tips. I'm aware that there are many new beekeepers out there, and with the shortage of courses, there's a little bit of panic setting in, I'm sensing. So I'm going to assume nothing, and I'm going to take you through lots of different things that you might find and how to deal with them during May. So before we go, I just thought I'd introduce our two newcomers. This is Buddy, and this is Blossom, and this is Kyra. They're only 2 weeks old, so welcome. I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot more of them. So we're approaching the busy beekeeping season, May. Before we go into May, I'll just recap what you should be doing by now. You should be inspecting your hives on a regular basis every week, and you should have treated them really for Varroa. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, or you'd like to recap, just go on to my April tips. So on this one, I'm going to talk to you about how to split a hive into a nucleus. I'm also going to tell you how to use a mating hive. I'm going to be putting a super on one of mine, and also I'm going to be showing you how to rotate your frames to get rid of the old wax, which is really good housekeeping. So before we go and do the first job, I'm going to talk to you a wee bit about bait hives. Now this WBC, actually the colony died during the winter, so what I've done is given it a good clean out, and I put some old frames of wax in there. So the reason for that is that, let's just say one of my hives swarmed unpredictably. Let's just say I couldn't find a queen cell and it swarmed. These things happen. Or you might even find a colony from somewhere else takes a fancy to it. Always a good idea to put an empty hive on the same apiary site as where your bees are. It doesn't have to be as grand as a WBC. It could be just a wooden box with a little bit of an old comb in there. But the idea is you're trying to attract the colonies. You never know, you might even get one of your own colonies habiting that later in the season. And what I might do, if I'm not successful, I might even have to use that WBC for putting another one of my colonies in myself. So let's go and have a look at some bees then. Right, so I'm just about to put a super on. It's the time of year when we're all full of expectation, loads of honey, so I'm all prepared. I've got my supers already made up, so here we go. I've looked at this hive a couple of days ago, and it's across 10 frames, no sign of any queen cells, still plenty of laying space, so it's all ready for its first super. A little bit of smoke like that, and then remove the crown board. As you can see, they're quite lively today. It's a lovely sunny day. When you put your queen excluder on, it's a poly hive, so the best queen excluders for these are the slightly outsized 500ml ones, although the other ones will work okay as long as you're careful. So notice the slots are going the same way as the frames, as will be the super with 11 frames in this case in there. Now this is a mixture of brand new supers that I made up over the winter, and also we have some recycled supers from last year that I extracted the honey, so the bees will be very, very happy with those because it's already drawn out, comb ready for them. So crown board gets popped back on, and that's it. On, off you go. Comb ideally should be replaced every 3 years. It's the best way of keeping a grip on and the reduction of parasites, germs and viruses, such as Varroa. So by simply just adding new frames and removing the old frames. How do you know how old they are? Well, it's just purely by colour. The older the comb gets, the darker it goes until it goes jet black. So in this hive, I need to replace a good half dozen frames. I'll just show you one so you can see what I mean. This one here, for example, it's in the middle of the colony. There you are, you see you've got brood there, you've got healthy bees, but it's a very dark brown and it will soon be black. So I want to try and get rid of that this season. There's one way of doing it, by slowly putting the frames that you want to discard further and further towards the outside of the colony until there's nothing on them, and just remove them. But don't isolate the brood, don't do it too quickly. The other thing I'd like to mention is now is the time of the year to think about this, because in the early part of the season, bees are prolific wax builders. They are building new homes, they are expanding, whereas the further you go into the season, then they'll start consolidating and getting ready for the winter siege. So that's one way of doing it. How I'm going to do it is by literally placing another brood box with brand new empty frames on the top of it. It's a bit of a trade-off. When I do this, clearly the bees are going to work their way up and start drawing the comb, and I'll have some lovely brand new brood and comb and all the rest of it. And as these vacate, I can then take the black comb out. I am hoping actually, if we have a good season, they might come across both brood boxes, and if that's the case, then I'll be quite happy to split them and make another nucleus out of it. Obviously the trade-off is that because the brood area is doubled, then I'm probably going to get a lot less honey, which for this hive, for this year, I'm not bothered about. Okay, so I'm going to show you now my method of splitting a colony of bees to form a new nucleus. So there are different ways of doing it. This is quite a common way which I adopt, and it's been quite successful for me. So before you start, really, you need a nucleus box, you need new frames. In this case I need 6 new frames, and you need a colony that you want to breed from. So obviously the characteristics of this particular hive have got to be good, and they've got to be in a stage where they are ready to cope with the split. So this is about right. It's across nearly 11 frames. I was about to put a super on it. Obviously this is going to set it back because I'm actually splitting them, but then I'm after more bees for this hive and not necessarily lots of honey. So here we are. As you can see, the most important frame that I'm going to be putting inside the nucleus is this one. Now, as you can see there, that funny looking white disc there is called a queen isolator. I use this quite often when I'm splitting because it does what the name says really. I found the queen and I've just put this little protective cage around it so it won't move around. I know where she is, so I can pop that straight into my new nucleus there, like that. Along with that, I'm actually going to put a couple of random frames. Well, not random really, I've chosen these before actually, and I've put drawing pins on them so that I know which ones to get. And these have got a mix. Why I've chosen these, I've got a mixture of brood and also eggs, larvae, the whole lot, to keep the nucleus going while they get established. So that's one in there, okay, and then the other one is here, like that, popping it in like that. So you have to understand a little bit about what you're doing. We're actually, let me just remove that isolator now. The queen is safely relocated. There we are. These are all going to be young bees, nursery bees. So I'm going to grab a couple of frames, put plenty of bees on, and just shake them into my nucleus. 1, 2. But I've also identified that in here there are a couple of frames that I've left in which actually have a lot of very new eggs in. So it gives these bees an opportunity to be queen. So there we are. I'm now going to place the new frames either side. Like that. Here you go. One more frame in there. It's a bit chaotic until things calm down, but given a day or so, they'll all be rebuilding. So there we have the original hive in its original position. So you have all the old foragers still coming into this one. They will hopefully produce a new queen, and we'll look at this in about 5 days, 5 or 6 days. There'll be more than one queen cell, so some people leave 2 on. I personally only leave 1 queen cell there and let nature take its course, and hopefully they will re-queen successfully. So the crown board goes back on this one, and I'm going to relocate this nucleus hive into its new position. Notice I have the grass in there, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a moment. Well, that was all a bit fraught, but I think we did the job. So I'm just going to recap for those of you who weren't quite sure what was going on there. So I removed the queen. Also, I removed the queen with a frame of brood and 2 more frames of brood and eggs and food in there, and I popped it in there. Left back at base, we have on the original site, we've got all the old foragers who are going back to the original hive. They have got 1-day-old eggs there, which is very important because they will be re-queening. They will be producing a new queen back at base, and I've left lots of food there as well for them. So they have the old bees and they are producing a new queen. If you inspect them after 5 days and there's no sign of any queen cells, then you're in danger of losing your colony. So if you can afford it, get a frame of fresh eggs from another hive and pop them in there and let them start the whole process again. Meanwhile, we are back in our new apiary where I've got my nucleus of bees. So I have the queen in there with brood in various stages of development, and I've also got a little bit of food, and I've got the spare combs in there as well. But don't forget, in here they are nursery bees. They're very young bees. I've got this grass stuffed in the entrance there, which I'm going to leave blocked up for a day. They should, once again in the textbooks, they should eat their way through there and break away to freedom after 24 hours. I don't leave that to chance. I will check that tomorrow and make sure and just open that up. But don't forget, because you've got young bees in there, they won't be able to forage. They're not old enough until the younger ones start growing up. So what I'm going to do is give them a little bit of food. It's a summer solution, which is half the viscosity, half the thickness or the strength of the winter feed. So here we have a feeder there with a little top. The problem is I haven't got a super for this particular nucleus hive, so here's a little handy hint: a free feeder. What you need is a 1 litre carton of ice cream carton. Eat the ice cream, and then with a hot needle, can you see the holes in there? I've dotted some holes there. Just put the lid on there, and these fit perfectly on the top of a nucleus box. So just upturn it like that until it stops. It'll form a vacuum after a while and stop dribbling, and then it's like that, and then it's ready to place over the crown board hole. So this will keep your bees going. There we are. So that's how I do my nuke splits. Hope that helps. Well, that's it for my May summary. Last, I'd like to mention these mating hives. For those of you who are thinking about expanding or getting new queens, this is a really effective and fun way of doing it. They only cost about £12, and you can actually be very successful in getting yourself new colonies, new queens, for the price of £12, as opposed to about anywhere up to £40 if you're going to buy one. So I'm not going to tell you any more about that now, but I do have a separate video explaining step by step how I use them. So it's goodbye from me, and goodbye from Barney the dad, and here's Gino in the back.